This thing you can throw around, it's grippy, it's such a fun car to drive. You're under control at all times. Like, this is where the car shines, obviously. Light, mid-engine, it's what it's made for. Out of the box, it has understeer with a little bit of camber, extra camber. It has no... In the first of our driver scoring series, this 718 GT4 is going back to life on the street. It was a fully built track car that the owner has been removing all track focused mods on so that it's more fun to drive in the canyons and on the road, so we can really enjoy it as a fun weekend car and drive it even more. So as a full dedicated track car, it had racing slicks and PFC Club Sport brakes, which were really loud but really effective, and very stiff two-way adjustable MCS suspension. Those have been removed back to the OEM carbon ceramic brakes, OEM suspension, but he has a shortened gear ratio or shortened gears in the manual transmission and an upgraded LSD, as well as link pipes in a tune to make it louder and bring it up to about 440 horsepower. But before this thing's ready to hit the street and before we can review it with our new driver score, which I'm really excited to present to you guys, I think it'll be a fun collaboration with the community and a fun way to look at driver's cars as a huge nerd that I am. And but before we can do that, we've got to do one last thing before it's ready for street life, and that's to remove this old, tired, track-spent PPF. I've never been a fan of the Stealth or matte PPF, and I'm really excited to see what it looks like glossed out finally, because I love chalk paint and I love glossy cars. So let's get to that and then we'll come back to the driver score. Like I said, this PPF is really spent. It's stained with track marks, scarred, and ready to come off. So we're gonna remove this using various methods to get it done in the fastest way. I love doing it outside in that kind of ambient heat. But then you start to get hot. So you gotta bring it in and use heat guns, steam, and hot water. As some of you guys might know, removing PPF is just so much fun, and I had a great time doing this with the hours spent put into it. After being able to remove the PPF, remove all of the adhesive left over, because this PPF was pretty tired and not easy to remove, we took it through a full wash with our products to decontaminate the paint, get it ready for a slight polish. Unfortunately, the paint was in pretty bad shape underneath, and I didn't have time to do a full two-stage correction, but we got it back to something that's really livable, especially for the owner of this car. He doesn't really care. It's more of like my thing. So after polishing, of course, we had to add a ceramic coating. We used a prototype coating that we've been working on, and hopefully we'll be able to show you guys that in the next year. But what I always do after ceramic coating is I let it cure for 24 hours, and then I do a full wipe down with one wiper to add a top coat that not only has extra gloss over any ceramic coating, but it also creates a sacrificial layer in order to protect the coating itself with the same level of hydrophobics and without demoting the surface. So here's the end result. I'd love to hear what you guys think. So because of my history with this car and our channel that we used to have built around this and other cars called Car Honey, we always felt like reviews were trying to be so magical and creative with their language, and it really took away from helping the viewers understand what it's like to actually drive that car that they may never really get to drive, or they're actually thinking about purchasing or dreaming about purchasing one day so that they can, decide, is it the right car for me? I created a driver scoring system so that I can actually judge the car and compare and contrast it to other cars. I'm really open to feedback from the community to see what you guys think of the categories, their names, their specificity, and whether or not we should make some tweaks together to this scoring system. So the way this is broken down is we have 4 categories. Each category has 3 subcategories, and that category is rated by an average of those 3 subcategories. And then those final 4 scores for each category are weighted differently and average for the final driver's score. If you want to see how we implement the driver score and come back to this explainer later, just skip ahead to that first section of the review and come back to this later. We're also going to probably create a video so that people can reference this just separately. As we rate these things on the car, they'll make more and more sense why we differentiated and why we had to have subcategories. So the first category is style. Style, or the aesthetic look and design of the car. This is something that matters to us, but it doesn't necessarily affect the driver's experience, just the ownership. So it's only weighted at 15% of the total score. So the first category of style is design. So this is overall the design language of the body and the interior of the car. How good does it look to me, and hopefully you guys as well if you want to partake and give your input. The second category is stance. Now, this is about the wheels and the fitment. Because this is something that can be changed, modified with suspension and new wheels from the owner, it's something that we have to consider a little bit different than design. And I think it really has a huge impact on the presence of the car, so I wanted to rate it separately. And the third subcategory of style is edge. I wanted to use single words for each category and subcategory to keep it really simple. But if you guys have any suggestions on a different word for this, we're really talking about the wow factor, the overall aggressiveness and presence. Does it turn heads? And this is something that a lot of aero and aggressive styling can increase the score of, and it's also subjective. You know, sometimes over-styled cars can have a lower score because they're too out there. Now, the second category is, of course, sound. This is something that's obviously so important to the experience of the car, so it's weighted at 25% of the overall score. And the three subcategories are tone, character, and volume. Tone is about the exhaust sound, really like what are you actually hearing, the tone of the exhaust and the engine together, how does it sing, and how do we rate that? The character is a summation of all the different sounds that the car makes, from the engine to the exhaust to the transmission, all the things that you're hearing together. And some of those things can be good and some of them can be bad. And of course, volume is really important because sometimes the car can be too loud, it can be too quiet, it can have too much noise that you don't want and not enough of good noise. So we want to rate the volume appropriateness. Category 3 is, of course, performance. So the subcategories are power, handling, and thrill. How the car performs from a power perspective, not just 0 to 60 in horsepower numbers, but how usable is the power on the road? How much do you get to enjoy all of the power that the car has? And things like the transmission and gearing can really affect this, and too much horsepower on the street doesn't really get to be used without being super irresponsible, and too little horsepower can take away from the driving experience. And then handling is pretty straightforward. How does the car handle? The balance of the car. How does it feel in corners? We're gonna dive into that in detail and rate it because it's one of the most important things about a driver's car. But it's not so much about the sensation of the handling, but the handling performance itself, because we have categories for that later. And the third category in this is thrill. How much does this car excite you? Does the performance of this car actually get you excited, get your adrenaline pumping, and make you feel something for once? And then the fourth category is connection. And this is the most important thing when it comes to a driver's car, and it's 35% of the total weighted score, broken down into steering, sensations, and flow. So steering is obviously one of the most important things. How much do you feel through the steering wheel what the car is doing? This might be one of my biases, but I think steering is one of the most important things when it comes to a driver's car, and the industry has really left that out of most cars being produced and forget that we really want to actually get some feedback through the steering wheel. So this is a really important subcategory. Then sensations is everything you feel together. The brake pedal, the transmission, the chassis. Do you feel the wheels? Do you feel what the car's doing? The balance, the G-forces. That's so critical to the rest of the driving experience. And then it culminates in category 3, which is flow. How well does everything we've talked about so far, every subcategory, even the power, the handling, the sensations, and how immersed do you get in the experience of driving the car? How well does it flow together? We'll take you through the rating system by reviewing the car with our driver's cam, and then come back, total the driver's score, and put it on the board. So let's enter the driver's cam with the GT4 and see how it did. All right, guys, here she is. Before we hop in, we're gonna go over style. So the aesthetic part, the design of the car, something that's very subjective. I give the design of this car a 9. It's almost perfect. It's honestly, I can't think of anything too much better, but there are cars that I find more attractive, but because, a 9, because of the angles on this car, the subtle kind of curves on the car, it's not super curvy, but it's sleek, pointed, and just stealthy. I think, and because of its simplicity, I think it's really beautiful, and there's really not much to improve upon. And the interior elegance and simplicity matches the exterior. Love these carbon buckets. They're the most comfortable buckets you can get if you think buckets are comfortable. That steering wheel and dash is ideal. That steering wheel is one of my favorites, just in size and shape. And then of course, manual transmission, beautiful. So 9. I give Stance a 9.5. Out of the box, the engineers fitted a 2021, I think. I could be wrong in that, but I believe it's 2021. Let's check the tire in the rear. Where are we at? 20. Okay, it's 20s all around. Stupid me, stupid boy. 2020. To fit a 20 or above as an OEM spec, that is how performance cars do it. But on such a small car and making it look size appropriate is really sick to me. Like, it's so perfect. And the wheel design itself is perfect. Again, stance is something you can change, modify, change the wheel, change the suspension, the track width and things. You could actually improve on the track width in the front. But, you know, out of the box, 9.5. Yeah. I mean, this thing just sits so nicely. And one of the reasons why I wanted to remove this PPF is because from a design perspective, the gloss just enhances every little detail and curve on the car. So this is the way it should look. And as far as edge or wow factor goes, I gave that an 8.5. That's just not how I see this car. I think it's more elegant than it is aggressive, but someone might disagree with that entirely because it is, you know, pointy and stealthy and really friggin' sporty and sick. Yeah, this thing's actually pretty savage. So you guys can let me know what you think about the wow factor. I just know the RS is going to improve on that. The extra aero bits can make that even better. But let's get in and get into sound. Woo! Sorry, I knocked you. Hopefully I didn't misalign the camera. All right. Let's start her up. Okay, right away, you know, you're getting a lot of noise from this car, which is a great thing, and we'll rate that and how that goes. I'm gonna have exhaust valves open, but these exhaust valves have a closed zone for probably sound regulation, as well as, look over my shoulder, sound regulation, as well as avoiding drone and stuff when driving, like right here. But then they open back up. And overall, the car, it stops at 8. I've driven, you know, flat 6s that go to 9. They sing a lot more. This engine is just generally the runt of the flat 6, or sorry, I should only say the runt of the 4-liter flat 6s in the GT cars. Less power, less refinement, just slightly less impressive, still great all the same. So I give the tone or the sound of the exhaust a 7.5. So I don't think flat 6s are unique and awesome, and when they're done right, they're beautiful. I don't think they're the best sounding car in the world. I think, and I am a Porsche fanboy, it's just not true. So a 7.5 is a really great score for a car that's not even the best of its version of engine. And there's some left to be desired because it's a little bit raspy. Out of the box, it's too quiet. And then once you put the link pipes on, you can absolutely get amazing 911 level sound out of this when you spend more money on exhaust, but that's, you know, that's extra. And even then, it's just still not a V10 or a V12, so 7.5. Character, overall, this is the sounds of the car all together as a package. From everything you hear the engine. There's a lot of cabin noise. You hear some of the chassis. You hear rocks kick up. When this thing was track mode, it was so noisy from like brake clatter and all kinds of super stiff suspension noise that it was like actually pretty negative. But now it has more of a balance. There's still a lot of unwanted noise. So that's why I give the character an 8. From a driver's perspective, oh, you little mother... Yeah, don't. From a driver perspective, like, these are a lot of things that you want, so you get an 8. The valve train you can hear at all times, the good and the bad. You can hear the gearbox whining. You can hear the obviously the exhaust. It's a very raw analog experience, and that's also positive, but it comes with a lot of extra noise that feels unnecessary, and I've driven cars that do better. And then, as far as volume goes, it gets a 7. Out of the box, it's too quiet from the exhaust and too loud from the engine. You can bring the sound up like with this car, but then it's very loud overall, and you're not like going from quiet and refined to I now hear the engine and the valve train and I now hear the exhaust singing. It's kind of in the middle where you get a lot of noise that you want, but not always when you want it, because of basically a lot of things to do with the gearing, which we'll get into next. So that, you know, gets a 7 for me. And then going into the performance, power, and this is where this kind of extends the conversation, I gave power a 7.5 because there's a lot left to be desired. It pulls, it really goes. The power feels really raw, linear, excellent delivery, but even with the shortened gear ratio, it's still too long of a gear. You don't get enough time. You don't shift the gears and have to shift the gears enough, and you don't get enough time spent in the power band to use it all as frequently as you want on the road without driving like a maniac. So I've driven cars with 500-600 horsepower that feel slightly more engaging even on the road, trying to not drive like a maniac, just because how quickly the dual clutch they have like rows through gears and manages the power. Whereas this, you know, you're constantly wishing you didn't have to shift, or you're constantly wishing you would have had to shift earlier and still get the whole experience. So that's a huge drawback with this transmission. But I would say, like, if you had a PDK on this car, it would be a little bit better. But, you know, 3,200 pounds, 440 horsepower in this car, 415 or 420 stock is a really good experience, but it's still going to leave a little bit of power to be desired. And then handling, this thing you can throw around, it's grippy, it's such a fun car to drive, you're under control at all times. Like, this is where the car shines, obviously. Light, mid-engine, it's what it's made for. Out of the box, it has understeer with a little bit of camber, extra camber. It has no understeer, and it's friggin' awesome. I only gave it not a 10 because I've driven a 992 GT3 and there's other cars with more aero that handle even better, but, you know, a 9, dude. I mean, what else is there to say? And then overall, the thrill of the performance, I gave an 8. The car is really fun to drive, but it's also a little bit extreme, you know, like, it handles really well going fast, and you don't always want to go that fast on the road. And then, as well as the power delivery issues, you don't get to spend as much time in the power band. There's just some drawbacks to the thrill of this car, and then you're always going to have a little bit more thrill from having a little bit more power, like the 500 plus in some of the higher models, like the RS. Really thrilling. So I don't know, like, that's something that you guys should debate me on. Is that enough of a score, or is this car more thrilling to you? I guess the more you drive, the more you can, you know, rate on a spectrum, because you've driven, you know, really, really fast cars. And then connection. So this is the overall driving experience, some of the more important aspects. This is the category we rate the most. When it comes to steering, the steering is not the sharpest I've ever felt, but it's sharp. It's great. Really responsive, great turn-in, and a lot of feedback through the steering wheel. You get a little bit of like feeling and chatter, which is important information, and you also get good feedback so you know what's happening on the road. Not enough cars have this with newer cars. This is one of the best newer cars, but I only gave it an 8 because I've driven cars that are much better. They give you more, and I'm biased towards getting more and more feedback out of the steering wheel maybe even to a detriment. So I think this is an 8, which is a friggin' great score because the steering is really great. I just want it to be a little heavier and get a little bit more out of it. And then, what's next, guys? Check the note. Sensations. Okay, so this car, the sensations you get through the chassis, in your butt, through your ears, through your hands, through your feet, are really exceptional. Especially with like the brake pedal in Porsches, it's just really good. They actually give you feedback, which a lot of people, you don't give. I gave this category a 9. This is a lot of what you want in a driver's car. Lots of noise, lots of feedback, a auditory, tactile experience. And I think one of the other highlights that I haven't mentioned to bring into this is the clutch is one of the best clutches you can get in a car, period. It just pulls you into gear. It's so fun shifting gears in this car. You just wish you could do it a little bit more, but I gave it a 9. And then overall, the flow and the driving experience, the immersion of the cars, everything put together, I gave an 8. All of the things that I rated already, overall extremely positive. You're immersed in the driving experience, but there's just a few things that take you out of it, which is like too much gear. If you shift wrong, you got to get back in the power band, and overall that can break your focus. So it's really actually the power delivery and overall a lack of perfection, but like whatever. Thank you, dude. An 8 is a fantastic score. Like that's incredible. And I think this car is really just going to serve as a benchmark for all the other videos we do, because it is one of the best driver's cars you can buy that in the last 5 to 10 years. Unfortunately, they are now discontinued, so you can't say in production, but it's so good, guys. So we're gonna head back to the garage, total everything, and give you guys a score, and talk about how. And that's exactly what I want your guys' feedback on what the total adds up to and whether or not that's something that you expected. All right, guys. So let's see how the GT4 ranks as our first driver score. So for the style category, average, we ended up with a 9.2, slightly rounded up. For sound, we had a 7.5. For performance, we had an 8.2, and connection, we had an 8.3. So I have this little Excel sheet where I break this all down. Remember, style's 15%, sound and performance are 25%, and connection is 35%. So the final total score for the GT4 is an 8.2. I personally think that's the perfect score for a car like this. I'm kind of happy how it came out once I calculated it, mostly because I see like 8 as sort of this threshold where the greatest driver's cars will be above an 8. And that's not to say that a good driver's car would have to be over an 8. Like, remember, a 0 would be like a semi-truck. A 5 was something I'd imagine like a Honda Civic SI. So it's not like a horrible car. And then I would imagine a lot of good cars rank in the 6 to 8 range. And then we're talking 8 to 10 is the exceptional drivers. The 10 being something that we'll have to find. And I'm really excited to find that. I think I'll be scared to rate anything a 10. And I don't know if that'll ever really happen. It'll be like a holy grail moment somewhere down the road. But that's always going to be a little subjective. Thanks guys for watching. I want to get your feedback on this scoring system, on how we scored the GT4, and any changes you think you would make, and any cars you want to see us drive. Like and subscribe if you want to be a part of this.